Welcome back, Soulful Society, to Soulful of Wellness,
the multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
and certified coaches
who deliver tips to help you live your most authentic, balanced, and anxiety-free life.
Thank you for joining us again for another week of wellness goodness. And if you're new to the Soulful Society, welcome. Thank you for being here. We would love to have you as a regular listener. So if you enjoyed today's podcast, please consider subscribing or sharing with a friend, and you'll receive a new episode of Wellness Goodness delivered automatically every Thursday morning.
If you haven't yet rated or reviewed Soulful of Wellness, we'd love to have you help us out by tapping that 5th star and jotting down a few words telling us and potential listeners out there how you feel about this podcast.
Today, we're talking about how to create a personalized wellness routine that actually works for you by first auditing your current habits, which Kit and I will demonstrate. And of course, we will finish the episode off with 2 coaching tools that you can implement today. Thanks again for tuning in today. We are grateful to have you as a listener, and congratulations on being on your journey to a happier and healthier you. I'm Kaylin Stanton.
And I'm Kit Noonan.
The two of us met at our health and wellness coaching program at Georgetown University in 2019 and have been attached at the hip since.
We're passionate about the journey to being well, healing anxiety, and most importantly, staying authentic to our truest selves. So we created this podcast and the Soulful community to support you on your wellness journey. We're in awe of how the Soulful Society continues to grow, and we can't wait to see where this takes us all. Welcome.
All right, so today we're diving into all things habits, and we're going to debunk willpower motivation and instead simplify how you can cultivate a happier and healthier life. It does not come down to willpower. It does not come down to mere motivation. And Kit and I, we're going to demonstrate this for you and audit our own habits. So what I found interesting in your research, Kit, was more than 40% of the things that we do are habits.
Almost half.
Yeah.
That means we're doing them on basically autopilot. We're doing them as a routine without a lot of thought behind them. Or I know in my own case, often there's thought happening, but it's not about what I'm actually doing. When I'm brushing my teeth, I'm planning next steps or my grocery list or any of a million other things that don't have anything to do with brushing my teeth.
When I think about habits and that word in general and redoing them or sort of redesigning habits for a happier and healthier you, I honestly get a little bit intimidated, and I bet some of you do too. And so do want to add that we're all about incremental, small change that equals sustainable change. That's the way to do it. So I feel like it's tempting to think you need this big overhaul or you need to copy someone else's habits. But in reality, the good news is it's just little tweaks that can make the biggest difference.
There is no instant fix. It's the difference between starting something new with all the motivation in the world and you're on that perfection streak. You're like, day 1, check. Day 2, check. Day 3, it got really hard. Day 4, I'm holding on by my fingernails. Day 5, it's all out the window. We're back to square one. Habits are the opposite of that. You start with just a little thing that you want to do, or in some cases want to stop doing, but for ease of discussing this, let's just say it's something you want to start doing. So you start a little bit of it, and then you build every single time you do it, which may or may not even be every single day, but it becomes so rote. I'll give a really quick specific example of this. I used to be able to do a split. And, like the splits, like cheerleader style splits. It sounds weird, like a split. Then I didn't do one for years. And recently I was like, I wonder if I can still do it. And let me tell you, the answer was a resounding no. I wasn't even close. So instead of being depressed about how far I was behind where I used to be, I thought, well, every day I'm just going to do a little splits practice. And I mean like a minute. I've made a lot of progress, and it's just an interesting little experiment I've kind of been running with myself. But that's exactly the kind of things we're talking about today, turning it into a habit, something you just do without a whole lot of, do I feel like it? Do I want to do it? When should I do it? You just do it.
And without the self-judgment and all the narratives that surround, wanting to better ourselves. We need kindness, we need gentleness. And yeah, sometimes we need no narrative at all. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Be physical, try it, but start small. And I feel like that's a really good example. I love your experiments. That's your thing.
I know. I love being my own science project. So we're thinking, if 40% of our daily activities are habit, why not work this to our advantage?
Mm-hmm.
Cranking out some numbers here. If you multiply your waking hours by 0.4 for your 40%, that comes to about 6.5 hours a day we're spending doing things by habit. This is some studies I was reading, and I think part of that includes driving to work, things where obviously your brain is on. You're not completely like, whoa, I'm zoned out on autopilot, but your mind isn't thinking about the logistics of driving your car like it was when you were learning to drive your car. Your brain's planning and listening to music, or maybe making phone calls or listening to this podcast. You're not thinking about driving the car. You're driving the car out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
Think about 6.5 hours of a day. And that's what we're going to get into a little more in this podcast is, where is this time going? Where are these 6.5 hours every day? But think about how many things, from your face routine, driving your car, meal preparation, how much of that is a new recipe and you're really focused on it? And how much of it is just you doing the things?
I feel like, when you're playing like hot, cold, like trying to accomplish
hotter.
Yeah.
You're burning up.
I feel like that's when you're doing something and you aren't, not that you're mindless. Obviously, we don't promote being completely mindless. Like, we want to have some intention and awareness and mindfulness of what we're doing, which I've been lacking a lot lately, which is telling that actually, if you're just observing your behavior, you're able to discern a lot about your well-being.
Yeah.
All this to say that if you find yourself just doing it, you're meal prepping every day and it's just a part of your day and you don't really have to think about it, that's when you can call that a habit. So keep that in mind as we navigate through today's episode. I do want to share a quote that was very impactful that you found, Kit.
Go for it.
So it's by John Maxwell, a renowned leadership author. The quote is, "You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success and happiness is found in your daily routine."
Let's think about some of these habits. And here's a cool little experiment everyone can do. If you're thinking, well, I don't brush my teeth on autopilot, this is the perfect example. I used it earlier on purpose. Switch hands. We all brush our teeth with our dominant hand. Next time, try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. It's so awkward. All of a sudden, you're like, why am I so hideously uncoordinated right now? You actually have to think about what you're doing way more than you normally do. And it just points out how much you're really just doing that rote.
Mm-hmm.
So harness these habits, harness this rote nature of so much of what we as human beings do, and let's work it to our advantage.
Most definitely. It's like essentially a shortcut to your wellness.
Yeah, because all the motivation in the world isn't going to hold up forever.
No.
Habits can.
I always felt like I would fall short of things, especially like even in Lent. Like it just continues to be harder and harder, especially if you're trying to sprint at something too, or if you're trying to cleanse or get ready for something like in a few months and you're just sprinting to it. That just seems so much more daunting because it is more daunting. But I like the idea of like if we could just chip away, do a little bit here consistently, then we start to over time see those beautiful sustainable results.
Yes, seeing the evidence of how much progress we've made and how far we've come. So rewarding.
Yes. Yes. And so if your goal is something like, let's say weight loss or something tangible or physical like that, that is a byproduct of your habits. Like that's not actually the goal, if that makes sense. Like once you've achieved that, it's just the byproduct. Like using affirmations like I am radiant, I am glowing, all these things. They're just a byproduct of the little things that you're doing consistently. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. That's why the messages we send ourselves are the most powerful messages we hear, because we hear them the most. And how can you not believe the thing that you hear repeatedly day in and day out?
And our body on a cellular level is hearing us through these habits. Like whatever behavioral routines and things that we're doing, our body hears us and is like, oh yeah, I really do like water a lot. Thank you. Oh, result, glowing skin.
Over time, you identify with it.
Yes.
Without having to fake it anymore, your self-concept is, I'm someone who likes water. I'm someone who is well hydrated. I'm someone who drinks enough water every day.
It's the same thing as like if you want to be a yogi and it feels so far away and you have that Pinterest board or that mood board and you're like, I want to be her. Okay, well, we can't jump a million steps and fake ourselves into believing that we're that person. It's those little decisions, and then over time, and it doesn't take that much time, you're a yogi. Pretty soon, you've been practicing for a while, and that's your identity. And then you become hooked to the habit even more.
You go from someone who wants to do yoga to someone who does yoga to someone who is a yogi. And that's like the tipping point when you start thinking of yourself, I am a yogi. Then it's intrinsic. It's one with who you are at your core.
It goes back to what you said at the beginning of the episode about just do it. Don't talk about it. Be about it. And just see the results come.
Don't overthink it.
Amen.
Easy for me to say, harder for me to do.
Yeah, same.
All right. How do we get there, Kaylin?
To start, let's identify some positive habits that you have in your life. Then we'll think about a few negative habits that you'd like to change. All right. So we're going to start off with a few questions to ask yourself. And Kit and I, we're going to go ahead and answer them too. First question. You want to read it, Kit?
What are the first 3 things you do every morning? Are they always the same?
For me, it's breath work, which I do in bed, my skincare routine, and then I feed my puppy Wally. And yes, they are always the same. I would say 90% of the time.
That was the easiest part to answer. I was like, yes. Every day starts exactly the same for me, barring something going wrong. If my first 3 things aren't my first 3 things, something went awry and it's already off to a weird start. I draw a lot of comfort from knowing how my day is going to start, and it's starting like this. I drink a very large cup of water. Honestly, very first thing, still in bed. I wordle. It's like my way of waking up my brain. I do the wordle. And then I have a latte to kind of, symbolize it's a day. Let's do it.
So start to think about the first 3 things that you do every morning. And are they the same or are they not? Next question. Where do you currently lose a lot of time? So some examples could be worrying or gossiping, maybe negative self-talk, or sitting on your couch, scrolling through your phone. Kit?
Usually playing games on my iPad often watching mindless television shows. Right now, I'm using it in a good way as a form of self-care and relaxation. And it leaves me feeling exactly that, relaxed and at ease and ready to move on with whatever I need to do next, which feels good.
So it sounds like your day is very structured then if you don't lose a lot of time.
Well, I lose time, but I lose it in a way that benefits me. Whereas when I used to do other mindless activities where I lost a lot of time, they'd leave me feeling more anxious, wrapped up, negative, bad about myself. And that's a different kind of time suck. How about you?
Mine is really easy. Scrolling social media, huge loss, waste of time.
When you come back to reality, how do you feel?
Oh, I feel a little bit like I need to stretch my neck, first of all, because I've just been looking down in a zone for so long. And I feel very comparative. I just feel like I'm in a competition with myself. The perfectionist, the inner critic just is raging, having a party. And then I find myself having to, wage a mini war in my head and shutting down all those thoughts and those judgments of self. Like, it really is rarely judging someone else. It's actually just judging myself. And so I definitely mostly feel worse.
We both need to be aware and take conscious steps to control how much time we can and are willing to lose in these activities and weigh that against what we're getting out of it.
For sure.
It's not like you're saying, I'm never looking at social media again, that's it. But as a habit, you can set yourself a time limit and say, my social media habit is, and I'm going to help myself with this by setting the alarm.
It's all about setting personal boundaries and realizing when it is sucking up your time.
Yeah.
And then honestly reflecting a little bit about the root cause. Like, why am I like an ostrich in the sand with social media right now? Like, what feeling am I avoiding? Am I really down in the dumps about something? Am I kind of depressed? I can then identify the root cause and be able to replace that habit with something else.
Yes, definitely something that will get what you really are hoping for versus what you're getting.
All right, on to our tools to wrap things up. Tool number 1 is habit stacking. Have you ever tried habit stacking? To build new habits, work them into your current routine. Simply put, habit stacking is utilizing your current routine and habits in order to insert a new habit. So if you're trying to do a skincare routine and you already brush your teeth every day, maybe you stack that habit before you brush your teeth. Yeah, habit stacking is pretty straightforward, simple. You can try it anytime. You can try it tomorrow. You can experiment with stacking it onto different habits. Kit, you started this after our hydration episode. You've been so passionate about hydrating. And now that actually is the catalyst to all your other habits because that's the first thing you do in the morning.
It is.
But I remember you plucking it and putting it in your routine and stacking it.
Now it's completely habit. Then I had to remember each night before I got in bed, fill the cup. And I don't, you all who listen all the time probably have caught on that I'm very anti-clutter, and I hated the idea of a big cup sitting on the nightstand. I have totally gotten over that because the visual cue of the cup on the nightstand, I just deal with it. It's worth it. And when I get in bed, I see it. I go fill it. I put it back on the nightstand. When I wake up, I see it. I drink it. It works. It didn't take that long either.
And technically you habit stacked it with like, I can't go to bed until I put the glass of water out.
Exactly. Because how many times did I get in bed and go, oh, I'll just fill it in the morning. And then I would say, no, you want this habit, get up and fill it so that it was there when I woke up. Another tool. Use timers as a cue. When the alarm goes off, you think, what did I set that random alarm for in the middle of the afternoon? Oh, right. Oh, so glad I set that alarm. I'd totally forgotten. Can you tell I'm speaking from personal experience?
No, this is a lifesaver when I'm unmedicated ADHD. I actually set timers when I'm running errands sometimes. Otherwise, I'm roaming and just flailing. So I'll set a timer when I'm going into Home Goods, I'm going into Whole Foods, and it helps so much. Helps keep me on track with my day and check that off of the list and avoid getting sidetracked.
When you're out in the world, there's so many distractions. It's so easy to lose track. Yeah, help yourself out.
Set a timer, set an alarm for the habit, and then set a timer while you're doing the habit or the errand and trying not to get sidetracked with your day. This is particularly helpful if you feel like you never have enough time, but you also don't know where your time is going. Like if you're a remote worker and you're like, what did I do all day? I don't even know.
Conduct a time inventory. For one day, write down everything you do in 10-minute increments. I always think of pretzel day. I know you don't watch The Office. Pam was tasked with writing down everything Michael did. Be like Pam, but for yourself. What I think might surprise a lot of people is how long things actually take, or how long, not that they take, that they're spending doing them, which is two different things. I always think, oh, okay, this will take about this long. This will take about this long. I've been experimenting a little, actually looking at the clock and going, okay, I'm starting at this time. I'm shocked. It's basically about 50% longer than I think things are going to take that it actually takes.
Oh, story of my life.
Yeah.
If you have trouble planning or like leaving for things on time or just being able in your brain to allot the correct amount of time, like me, super helpful. Hopefully you learned a thing or two today on how to create a personalized wellness routine that works for you authentically and easily.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. We love having you.
Don't forget to share this episode with a friend who you think would enjoy it and who could maybe use some tips on how to create a personalized wellness routine. Thanks for joining.
Until next week, peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light.
The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers.
So